Hey, welcome to the roundtable. This is Chip. This is Chip. This is Jeff. I'm
This
here
is
with
Jeff.
this is this is this is Jeff here with co-host Chip. We have a great guest with us tonight. Right below us here, we've got the crypto curator, Paul. He goes by Paul. His real name is the crypto curator. But we're really glad to have you on with us tonight. We got a lot of things to talk about. I know you've got an amazing website and you bring a lot of great content, to the space. So we want to go through that a little bit. We want to talk about Bitcoin. I want to get into also talking a little bit about the U.S. digital dollar, the CBDC, Libra, and what's going on right now with China, because there was some big news that came out there. But hey, how's it going tonight?
Hey, it's going good, man. I'm super happy to be on with you guys.
That's fantastic. Chip, you know what time it is?
It's time to get this party started.
Time to get going.
And now, the roundtable with Jeff and Chip on the chain.
And here we are. Welcome back. So, you know what I wanted to start out with tonight? I thought this was something interesting before we get into Bitcoin, before we get into all these other great topics tonight. But it just keeps coming up over and over and over again. But it has to do with the US digital dollar, the CBDC, what China's doing with the digital yuan. And then there's been some interesting statements coming out of or coming from Mark Zuckerberg again. And if we think back not that long ago, it was about 7 months ago, one of the things that Mark Zuckerberg had said was that Libra would be the counter to the Chinese digital currency. But I think it's really interesting because recently what we're seeing right now is that the Chinese Communist Party, they have a new blockchain book, and it casts Libra as a threat to its currency system. And we haven't even seen Libra really launching yet. There's all this intrigue and all this stuff going on, but I just thought that'd be a really interesting place to start. What do you guys think about that? What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, no, it's interesting watching the entire space talk about central bank digital currencies, because before there was absolutely no talk of this. And slowly but surely, and I will say China has been the country to take the lead on actually issuing a digital type of a currency. But to watch when Mark Zuckerberg came out and talked about Libra, and again, it was in response to China talking about launching a digital currency. And so this war between the two have been fascinating to watch them go back and forth, trying to see who's going to position themselves as the new global currency, so to speak. It's been interesting.
Yeah, man, it's kind of crazy, Chip. We talk a lot about the geopolitics of things, and there's just it seems like the tensions are ramping up. But the fact that now the Chinese Communist Party is going to single out in their book on blockchain, they're singling out Libra now as a threat to their currency. And there's, as we go through, we're also seeing that it just in the past couple months, we've seen we've talked about this also, the US digital dollar that's been in 3 different draft bills, which we know that for the most part, it's really just, just a lot of, it's a false narrative, because the US digital dollar that's appeared in these different bills really has nothing to do with blockchain. And it's really just more of the same. But they're just, and like Paul's saying, man, 6 months ago, 7 months ago, I don't even know that we'd be talking about the reality now at this point of a central bank digital currency. And now that's all, to me, I think, man, it's all over the place.
Stalemate. Oh yeah, it is. It is all over the place. I would say this though. I don't necessarily know what the adoption is going to be worldwide for that. The Chinese yuan. I'm not really sure what that looks like. Only reason I say that is because, it makes sense for a Chinese, a communist sort of system to track really their people. And if it is blockchain related, you know, what transparency does it provide? And if it doesn't provide transparency, then I think we're in for a big shocker. You know, it's like it could go almost any way. And I don't necessarily have high hopes for this coin in general. Like, for example, I had seen something, I don't know if you guys know this company called Luckin. Luckin Coffee came over here in the US, blew up. They had like 200-300 stores. Like it went public in a year. Their stock blew up to $50, and then it was announced in April that it was all fabricated. There's a really good article in the Wall Street Journal that says everything was fabricated. Vouchers were being purchased in China for hundreds of millions of dollars, so it inflated their price, and then everybody started buying the stock. I mean, you're talking about massive fraud. They're trying to pull it off the stock exchange, but this is just a very good indicator of what happens in China. There's a lot of deception, and there's no transparency. So who's really worried? I would be more worried about somebody else coming out with a digital whatever, a CBDC. I don't think I understand they're a big player and it's all smoke and mirrors, but communism's built on deception. Let's get that right? It's not built on like transparency and freedom, and no, it's like, you know, smashing people down, and that's what it's about. So I'm not sure. And Paul, I don't know, what are your thoughts on this? Do you see this being a threat? Do you see adoption from the blockchain space? What do you see on that?
Yeah, no, so I don't see it as a threat. Listen, and I try to get this across to people. When you see something of this magnitude developing, it doesn't happen as a happenstance or just by luck, right? This is very intentional. I remember I was over in Dubai for a conference, and a group of us were talking, and one of the gentlemen, I really don't even remember his name, so I'm not going to be able to disclose anything that's crazy, but he's told me at that time that China was working on something, and because we were talking about this topic of Bitcoin and how, because back in the day, every time something happens, China's going to ban it. And he says, well, here's what they're going to do. He says, they're going to launch their own currency. And I was like, no, they won't. All of a sudden, fast forward to today, and they're in fact doing it. It's going to be a slow, methodical process, but they're putting the effort behind it to actually bring it to market. Now, a lot of people say, well, who's going to adopt it? Listen, the people are going to adopt it because they're going to make it so, and they're going to make it in such a way that they're going to almost have to adopt it. It's the same thing for the U.S. When it look at the U.S. digital dollar, when it launches, and it's going to launch. I don't know what the name will be. Probably won't be Libra. It probably won't be Calibra Wallet. It won't. Well, the new name they've now given it, Nico or something like that. But the reality is this: you're going to see everything go digital, and this is just the trajectory that we're on. And rather it be, I think all currency is going to go digital. Now, someone made an interesting comment, and it was on Citizen Bitcoin podcast. I think it was Jeff Booth. He said, everything being pegged to Bitcoin, right? And I've told people this time and time again, we're going to watch all currencies pegged to Bitcoin eventually.
Interesting, but I mean, but the question was the adoption, not necessarily for, I mean, obviously their citizens have to adopt it, right? Yep. They'll be tied to their social score, but I'm talking about, because we're talking about it as a community, right? As a crypto community, this is a big deal. Do you see it being adopted outside of China?
I think, no, it could very well be something that they just use in China, but then when it goes cross-border, it gets converted to something else. And as we all know, converting digital assets cross-border is super simple, super easy. Even if you look at Binance, you can trade Bitcoin for whatever token or Ethereum for whatever token. I think it's going to be the same thing. When it crosses borders, it'll get converted, just like we do when we take dollars over there, things like that. But it's going to happen.
Gotcha.
We won't adopt it. We won't use it. They will use it, and they'll have a purpose for it. But that's all that matters.
Right. Well, China right now, I mean, is the Bitcoin thing right now. You know, it's like they had Hong Kong, right? Hong Kong's getting a little weird, right? It's getting a little bit. Looks like they're starting to pull it more under the veil and the control. But you know, I mean, what are your estimates, and what are you hearing about China as far as how much? There's a lot of people surmising what they have, but what do you think? Because I think really that's a phenomenal vehicle for China to be able to then convert that into whatever currency. What do you think they have? I mean, as far as Bitcoin, how much do you think they own? What's your guess?
I haven't heard anything, behind the scenes, but I would assume that China does in fact have Bitcoin. I believe they own Bitcoin. Would they ever publicly say so? I don't think they would, but I'm almost certain they will. I mean, look what Iran's doing. Iran started to mine for Bitcoin. I mean, listen, once that actually happens and there's some success and it shows that it's getting traction, every other nation state is going to start mining Bitcoin.
Yeah, and that's interesting. Going back to what you had mentioned, the fact that as we move forward, there's a chance that you're going to see a lot of these currencies then pegged to Bitcoin. And let's explore that a little bit, how that looks. Because right now we look at Bitcoin and we say, okay, it Bitcoin itself isn't really going to be, at least based on what we're seeing right now, and in terms of the transactional time, the cost of transaction, too slow, too costly. So Bitcoin on its own isn't going to be used as a currency. And even though in its inception, I think there was some thought that it would be, but now as we move forward, it's interesting. So we know if to explore that concept, we know that Bitcoin is a good store of value. And so if it's a good store of value, like let's say gold, then let's explore that a little bit. Currency is now pegged to Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think it takes time. Listen, I think everybody, we have to remember, Bitcoin's been in existence for 11-ish years, right? It's going to take a lot of time for this thing to develop. And everyone thinks that it's going to move from store of value to medium of exchange to unit of account all within 5 years. It's not true. We've got a long path to go. The last Bitcoin is going to be mined in the year 2140. So we've got a very long, most of us are probably dead and gone by the time this thing really gets fully developed. So we have to understand.
Wow.
Well, 2140.
What?
Yeah.
Hey, man, possible.
Yeah. That's what they said. The last Bitcoin is going to be mined in the year 2140. So if that's the case, and this thing is not fully birthed until a very long time, will it eventually become a medium of exchange? I believe it will. It's just going to take time. Yes, is it volatile right now, and everyone's worried about the volatility? But if Bitcoin's $1 million of Bitcoin, and you have $20,000 price move, there's nothing. There's no volatility. So it's going to take time, and eventually, I think we're going to see it become a unit of account. And things will be priced in Satoshis. It won't be priced in Bitcoin. No one will ever say, will you pay a Bitcoin, because that's ridiculous. Everything will be a Satoshi.
Yeah, sats. You'd be paying sats. Yeah.
Sats.
Beautiful. Yeah. I think that's definitely likely a possibility. But I'm sorry, Jeff, do you have a follow-up question to that?
No, I was going to go back and try to, I guess, understand a little bit more about, other currencies then at this point in time, potentially pegging to the Bitcoin.
Yeah, again, I think and again, there's a conversation about Bitcoin becoming the global reserve currency, right? And right now to say it sounds ludicrous, but again, I think that over time, we're going to see that it's the hardest asset that we have out there, and that's what people will, just like we do with gold. I think we're going to do the exact same thing only with Bitcoin, and Bitcoin very well could even supplant gold because it's almost like a digital gold. So them using Bitcoin as sort of the unit of account to their currency is how I think they're going to peg it. And that goes for all currency that's out there. And will they be able to use their currency inside their borders and to use it for all the purposes they need to? Yes. And specifically with China, they'll be able to track all the transactions. They'll be able to do all the surveillance that they need. It works out great for them. But when they're starting to do cross-border type transactions, all of that I think will be priced in Bitcoin.
Interesting. So what do you, there's been some movement in the top 5 space. You just kind of see some things moving around a little bit. You got stablecoin inching up, right? So you see, it's pretty interesting that stablecoins, people are want to put their money into something. I mean, do you see that's going to grow? Do you see stablecoins growing as far as market cap's concerned? In other words, are people going to put more of their store some value and hedge against the volatility of the market? Because you kind of see that space growing a lot.
It is growing a lot, and there's a lot of stable coins. It used to be that the king stablecoin Tether was the solo stablecoin, and there's a lot of controversy around Tether. Do they really have $1 for every Tether? Of course, that's been proven. No, they don't. It's probably about 70%. But the reality is that there's more and more Tether being printed. And there was a report came out recently that they, in fact, are not burning Tether. And so that's why you're seeing Tether which sounds crazy, is in position 3 in market cap, is because they've printed so many Tether. Now it's just almost sort of like the US dollar. We can print, and there's no inflation, right? And everybody's wondering, where's the inflation? Well, there's such a demand for dollars that all the dollars are being sucked up. There's a liquidity issue with dollars. The same thing is happening with stable coins, Tether and USDC, Gemini dollar, all of these stable coins. And the reason that there's so much demand for them is because that's the easiest way for you to move in and out of digital assets. To go from digital assets to fiat is a nightmare. If you have it with a stable coin, you can move in and out almost seamlessly. So I think that that's a great place to park money when you think the market's going to pull back. That's a great place to be able to put the money back into the market when you're ready to put it to work.
That's a good point. That's really interesting. Thinking about the utility of the stable coin, and the stable coins many times are either tied to a fiat currency, or they're pegged to the fiat currency. Hopefully we'll get Chip back in here. He's having some technical difficulty here, but that is oh, you're frozen. He's out.
That's okay.
Yeah. So, but that's really interesting.
Here's another thing too with stable coins, and again, it goes to show you the demand for stable coins. You look at these platforms like BlockFi and Celsius. You know how much interest paying on stable coins? Ridiculous number, 8%. 8.65%. It's a crazy amount of money to earn interest, especially in a negative interest rate environment that we're in. And you're being to tell me you're going to pay me 8% for stable coins? The demand is so high. So
yeah, that's really good, Chip. We're talking, really looking at these stable coins, and there seems to be a growth in the stable coin space. And actually, Paul, I think we ended up meeting you through the last video that we did on Celsius. You'd provided some feedback to that video, and what do you think about that space? That you're bringing it up, and we had made a video prior to it. There's some concerns in this space with some other platforms where individuals have been liquidated due to I guess there's a couple concerns with it, that we had, but one of them is that people had been liquidated, not necessarily because of just the flash crashes that occurred, but it was the flash crashes and some technical difficulties that were occurring on those specific platforms, but yet the individuals were liquidated regardless. But what are you seeing in that space, overall? And there's quite a few platforms that are popping up, similar to, like you said, Celsius, which we talked about, BlockFi, Nexo, BiTrue's in it, and there's others that are also participating.
Yeah, that space is growing, and it's growing rapidly. And I tell a lot of people that we're watching the entire financial infrastructure be rebuilt on top of blockchain. And platforms like, and I've mentioned BlockFi, Celsius all the time because they're the leaders in the space. You have Compound, and you've got Nexo, and you've got some of the others, but the leaders right now, in my view, are BlockFi and Celsius. Will there be issues? Yes. Listen, again, we all have to remember this is such a new technology that for us to think that it's going to work flawlessly the way JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs operate, not true. And we all know they still have issues. So the reality is that we're going to have problems with these platforms. Just be prepared for that. I'm not afraid of those platforms. A lot of people are concerned about, how can they give you that amount of interest? And, they must be playing, magic with all the stuff. They tell you what's going on. It's rehypothecation. Absolutely. Listen, if I put my Bitcoin on those platforms, they're going to loan that Bitcoin out. They're going to get a higher percent loaning it out to someone else that can actually make more money with that. And then they're going to pay me my little piddly percent, whatever they give me. But the reality is that's the way the system works. That's the way our current system works in finance. Now, some people will take issue with that. Well, this is digital assets. This is Bitcoin. We don't do that. We don't rehypothecate. Not your keys, not your coins. I got it. But the reality is there is a demand for this to happen. And guess what? What the market wants, the market normally gets.
Right.
That's good. Yeah, but that's something. So yeah, we hear that a lot. Not your key, not your coin. It's just, if you're not controlling the key and you're giving up that to a platform, then you have a, potential risk of losing it. Now, you have that potential risk of losing it if you're going to be liquidated, if you're playing with the margins, especially when you're borrowing against it. That was some of our concerns anyways. And overall, I like the direction the technology is going in, and if you know what you're getting into and you understand the margin play, and you understand that you're taking that risk, then that's great. So, everyone's risk tolerance is a little bit different. What I had some issue with those platforms is the way they candy coat the borrowing side of it, where it's not so straightforward regarding the fact that you're entering into a margin account relationship where you have that possibility of being liquidated, and maybe it comes afterwards in some of the language, but yet there's so many novices that are entering this space that have never invested before, and investing in digital asset is the first time they've ever invested. And so now they say, based on the way the websites are marketing themselves, hey, it's easy, you can borrow, don't sell. If you need the money, you can take out, we can pay you out in whatever you want to be paid out in, but you can leverage your digital asset without having to sell it. But yet there's some, hidden realities in that language, which is the margin aspect of it, which is where people get hurt.
It is, but Jeff, and again, and this is my view on it. If you're willing to place your assets on these platforms, it's my hope that you're not doing that blindly. And I know that, yes, they have a responsibility in the way that they market what happens, but I also say we have a responsibility specifically because this now gives you full control of your money. If you're willing to just blindly put your money out somewhere and just expect someone else to do something, that's not this is not the business to be in. Go do that with stocks, right, or with other kind. If you're coming into the digital asset space, you're coming in with the understanding that you are 100% responsible. This is the issue with people losing their secret keys to their, and then all of a sudden need somebody to help them get their assets back. It doesn't work that way. This is digital assets. You lose your key, it's gone forever.
It's gone.
That's
right.
Right.
But
so
that's,
yeah,
I'll say, but I think there's an issue though. I mean, I think we have to solve this custody issue, right? I mean, it's okay if you understand you got a Trezor, you got a ledger, there's, you have a cold storage wallet, and your heart goes crazy when you move it from an exchange and you're like, let me just move $10 worth first, and then and your heart's like, and you're watching, you're like, and like you freak out, there's like sweat running down your face, and you're like, what's gonna happen? Is it gonna go? Is it gonna go? Oh my God, I can't take it. Oh my God, I'm an idiot. Oh, it's there. Okay, cool. Like you can't have, like I can't have my parents in this thing. I can't have people that are, that are coming in and they're like, yeah, digital assets. Like the custody thing has to sort of get sorted out at some point, right?
But it is. Now, again, I don't mean to push people's brands or anything like that, but I think Vinny, the product that he's recently come out with is going to be a solid product. It's a multi-sig wallet, right? The Civic wallet is multi-sig wallet, has insurance on it.
What's the name of it?
It's Civic.
Civic.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, Civic. Vinny Lingham is the person that created it. I've known Vinny, just social media known Vinny for a while. I think I saw him once at Consensus. But the thing is that he's created a way for you to put your assets on that wallet and to hold them. And it's non-custodial for the most. Well, I take it back. It's not non-custodial. They actually hold. It's a multi-sig. They hold key access to the asset themselves. So it's 3 different keys, I believe. You have a key. They have a key, and the company that they're holding custody with has a key. If anything happened to you, let's say you passed away, your loved ones would be able to have access to your assets. So the custody is there. You happen to lose your key, they still can give you access to your assets. So I think that there are more products like that. They're going to come to market that's going to give you the ability to not have to have that fear of, oh my goodness, I've lost my key, I've lost my coins, right? And again, there's issue in the industry with that. Some people don't like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's a great one. And here's the other part of it. Some of the hesitancy. People saw the meltdown of Mt. Gox. People saw the meltdown of Quadringa. Was it Quadringa, CX, RX, QX, whatever it was, over in Canada. Some
wasn't
X,
SpaceX though, I know that.
It wasn't SpaceX because that's shooting rockets up in space. But yeah, but But with Quadriga, in Canada, we still don't even really know if that CEO actually died. We just know he died in an area of India where supposedly a lot of other people have died also that ran off with large sums of money. So we don't, maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but let's assume that he did. But he died with all of the keys. He was the only one that had access to the entire exchange. So people see that and like, oh my God, I'm terrified. If I put my money into an exchange, am I ever going to get it back? Now, I look at exchanges like Uphold or Coinbase or Gemini or, even a platform, like a Celsius, and you look at the people behind it. We're not looking at people that just came out of nowhere, and we're looking at, for the most part, US based exchanges, US based ownership. We're looking at entities with a physical corporate address, with a physical corporate building, a physical corporate structure. So when you look at that and you look at the lineage of the people that are working for these platforms, you kind of get a sense that, these guys are fairly reputable in the space, as reputable as it can be, if you invested in, in JP Morgan and let's say JP Morgan went bust, with the meltdown. And there's been banks in the past that have gone out of business, and, people, you have assets tied up in the bank and, it gets into the court battles and everything. But I look at it from that perspective that if you keep money, in order for there to be mainstream adoption, you need the multi-sig wallets like you're mentioning. I think that's critical. I think it's important to have trust in a Coinbase and an Uphold. And I always think about this, kind of this blending of a scenario between traditional banking and the crypto space. And I don't know which way it's going to go, or the bank's going to go crypto, or the crypto's going banking. But right now it looks more like the crypto space is going banking faster than the banking space is going crypto with a Coinbase or an Uphold, where, you can keep your US dollars over there. You can gain interest if you put your currency into a stable coin that's pegged to the US dollar. And it's interesting, you get more interest by putting it onto any of those platforms than you can if you put it into your bank, So if you're going to get a 0.5% of interest or 0% interest at the bank, you're a lot better off getting, 5%, 3%, 8%, whatever it is on these other platforms. I personally, I still struggle with, this idea of is there risk in these other platforms, and if something does happen, but what's the risk? Is the risk that they're going to shut down, close up shop and disappear? That to me is a bigger fear to me than them being hacked, because if they're hacked, they have insurance for that. But you don't have FDIC coverage if they close up shop and run off with your money.
True, you don't. But they're like I said, especially when you, and I think Chip mentioned this, when you're looking at institutional type custody, those solutions are out there. BitGo is the largest, probably one of the largest ones. Kingdom Trust is a large one out there. Yep. And for other people, there's Casa Huddle, right? Casa Huddle is a great platform for if you want great custody, and it's a multi-sig as well. So I think we're going to, and again, back to this is still a new industry. As time goes on, we're going to see these things mature. And before you know it, it's going to be super easy for people to own digital assets, have access to their keys, have inheritance type situations. It'll all work out. It just takes time.
That's a good one too, based on the inheritance, because that, if you're the only one with access, and I think about that when I think about the, what's the little thing we plug into our computers?
Like a ledger, treasurer.
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't think of the name of it.
Yeah. Don't give it away, Jeff. Don't tell anybody.
Oh yeah. Oh, thought someone heard me. No, but so the ledger, you think about that. If something happens to you, to your loved ones, are they going to even be able to access your ledger? They're going to need your password to the ledger. They're going to need all this other information. Then what happens? They can't access it.
Yep. There's actually a young lady. She wrote a book, and I'm going to forget her name. Sorry. She worked with Andreas Antonopoulos, and they have a whole process for you to go through. And the first step is it's called the letter to loved ones. You write a letter to your loved ones, tell them what you have. You don't give them all the access and things like that, but they at least aware of what you have, and it gives them some instructions, right? And I've sort of done that with my own family. I have a process that I've taken them through. They understand where things are, how to access them. But some of my assets, and they sit all over the place, are with platforms like BlockFi and Celsius, and they actually have a beneficiary type of a process that you go through. I believe I did that with BlockFi. Celsius, I don't think have one, but they do have a way for you to have someone's name attached that if you passed away, they could contact them. So there's processes like that.
That's important. That's mainstream, and that's what's needed in the mainstream space.
Really is.
Right.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, I just wanted to showcase your site a little bit because I think it's a really good site. Let me pull it up here. Let me go ahead and share my screen. But I really like the amount, and this is what's crazy. I love the amount of stuff that you're aggregating here. Let me see if you guys see that now. There you go. So this is it pulled up right here. I guess can I zoom up a little bit here? Let's see. I guess I could here. Oops, wrong screen. Wrong screen. But it's cool what you have here because. Just going to zoom it up a little bit just so we can see it there. But here you got like May, blistering pace, give your basic overview. And then if we come to it, this is pretty impressive because this is a really good thing for you guys to bookmark. And we'll have it down. You can look in the description right there if you want to go down and grab it. But here's the top. You can always go back at any given time and kind of see what the market dominance by Bitcoin is, Ether, USDT, XRP. It's got the top 5 right there. And then some top news, video of the day, podcast of the day, and then some really interesting stuff that's going on podcast wise, stories and everything else. And then my next question is, when the hell do you have time to do all this? Because you're curating it, right? That's why you're called the crypto curator. You're finding the best stuff.
Exactly. Awesome. So part of this came from a previous business that I was in. 2003, I started a business with a good friend of mine. It was called Infoition. We curated news information for most of Capitol Hill, Fortune 500 companies. And what we provided to them every morning was a brief, and it was broken down to news mentions about them, or on Capitol Hill, be about the member or the committee. If it was a Fortune 500 company, it's about that actual company. And then we would list about their competitors. And then after that, we had a section that was for the industry. And so what happens is the C-suite executives would get in the morning, they could read that brief, and when they went to their morning meeting, they were at least knowledgeable of what was going on. The marketing departments loved us because we made them look really good because they had all the information. So when I came into the Bitcoin space, I began to look around, and again, I'll be the first to tell you, as a matter of fact, in my former product that I used to put out, I actually curated all the newsletters that were out there. And I used to tell people, hey, listen, I do this newsletter, but there are a lot of great newsletters, but no one was doing something that was comprehensive. Now, what you have there, it's very boiled down because I've realized the average person, they're not going to go through 40 different links. But I did send you a copy of the full brief, and that one has every section you can imagine under the sun. And I'm watching the entire space every day just so that I can understand what's really going on. And it helps me. This is one of the reasons I tell people, this is why I've been able to hodl for so long, because I'm looking at all of this information. There's no way I'll ever let go.
That's smart. Yeah. And it's funny because I do see you have a Patreon on there, which is awesome, but this is a significant amount of work that you put into it. Camilla Russo, she writes the Defiant. I don't know if you're familiar with that newsletter, but she has a scenario where she puts a free newsletter out, but then you can pay for it. You can pay for it in crypto, or you can, and it's really well done. I'm like, that might be something you kind of look at, like having sort of a freemium model, because this is really good data right here, information you have. I don't know if you're familiar. Are you familiar with her newsletter at all?
I think I might have seen. I'm not sure if I've. I'm not sure.
Because I like what you do. It kind of reminds me of what she's doing. She's really focused on the DeFi space, but you're kind of looking around. I mean, there's a lot of good Bitcoin stuff in there, but you're picking some really good stuff. Like I was looking through there and like, wow, I didn't know that. Wow, this is cool. So I just think there probably is a market for it. I mean, I think it's great, and if I keep poaching stuff over here, I might have to get in your Patreon over there and start supporting you, man. At least give you a Finster a month.
I tell, especially for folks that are podcasters or people that keep up with the news, I tell them that, it is a resource that they can use, because I try to weed out all of the craziness. Now, again, most of my focus is the main tech publications, your Cointelegraph, your News BTC, CoinDesk, those types of publications. Every once in a while, there's some Forbes articles or Bloomberg articles that filter in, but I haven't moved to, and because this would be way too much work and I don't think I could do it, but to look at all the top major mainstream media type publications, see if there's Bitcoin stories being posted in the LA Times, the Chicago Tribune, or that, then my day would really be a nightmare. So I don't do
right. Compounded, unless it turned into a source of revenue, where it was you're rewarded for for the kind of work you're putting in. But it's great. It's always great for us to come across people in the space that are doing, putting this out there. And really, it really, the whole idea of the curation is key, because, you're taking your expertise and your mindset and sifting through a bunch of, because you know how the crypto publications are. They don't always get it right. And if you kind of read, the average person will read through and be like, okay, that's wrong, right? And you can kind of sniff through that. And I think there's something to be said about somebody that can really curate it. And it makes sense you used to do this, because it's spot on, it's really well done.
So one of the things, and I don't know if you guys have time for this, but one of the things is on my site, I have this post. It's under resources. It's called Bitcoin Predictions Gone Wild. So I'm a huge prediction fanatic. I love seeing predictions. I love making predictions, the whole 9 yards, because it's just interesting to see where it goes. So I began to curate and track all the predictions, and I've been doing this since late 2017.
Where is that on your site? Where is that?
If you go to resources and then scroll down toward the bottom, it's called Bitcoin Predictions Gone Wild. I don't know if you'll be able to pull it up and see it, but and the last time I updated was April 2nd. But every time someone comes out with these bold predictions, I track it. In the middle of that post, I used to keep it on a separate medium, and I pulled it over to this one. And some of these predictions that people were making, I mean, it was just ludicrous. I mean, again, probably one of the most popular one was McAfee making the $1 million prediction before 2021 or something like that. He was going to eat his own private part, right? Not going to make it, brother.
Well, then he said he was just trying to get people interested in the space,
Right,
but that's what I would say too.
Gonna happen, exactly.
Because nobody really wants to do that. So here we go. Response. Is this it right here? April 19.
No, keep scrolling down. Keep going. Down. One more, a couple more. So keep going. Keep going down toward the bottom. Go back up. 1 more. There it is.
Boom, there it is.
Yeah. So the other benefit of curation is that as you look at the news over a long period of time, it begins to tell a story. And I've got several pieces on this resource section where I've went and buried down on one topic, and I've curated all the news from this year on that topic. It's fascinating to watch the development of some of these stories. But some of these predictions that I haven't, and I've decided to break it out to what's reasonable and then what's probable, and then sort of like what's just crazy. But some of these, you look at them and you can go back and you can see when it was posted, and you look at what they predicted. It's like, they pretty much did have their finger on the pulse. Other people, you're like,
amazing.
It's cool, man. It's really, really cool.
Yeah. So it's a lot of content, but it's fun content. I like it.
Probable. I like the 33K by July. Okay, it's still possible though. I mean, you might have to like move it into a different column, but it's possible, right? Anything can happen at this point. If we thought 4 months ago, would you think the whole world economy would stop? You'd be like, come on, that's ridiculous.
Do you seriously? I mean, we're not going to get 33K in July. I don't see it. Not going to happen.
Well, let's get into predictions.
Really hoping for it by tomorrow, but yeah.
Yeah, really.
Wake up tomorrow morning, and it's the whole market's crazy.
But Paul, if we get into predictions, like what do you see by the end of 2020? Let's go through some coins. Like, so what do you see for Bitcoin end of December 31st, 2020? What do you see for price prediction? And now we're not going to hold it to you, but
no. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking by the end of the year, I believe we would have retested all-time highs, 20K, and if we have not surpassed that, there could potentially be a pullback that would bring it back under 20. But I think it's very probable that we will see $20,000 by the end of this year. Now, right now we're sitting at, let's just call it June, 6 more months. If Bitcoin was to move $1,000 a month from now until the end of the year, that's 6,000 added to what we have right now, which is almost 10. So that's 16K. So that's, again, realistic. Adam Back came out this probably a month ago, and he says, I can envision basically, or I can see, or he says, I think we're going to see a $2,000 candle, right? We haven't seen any of those yet, but he thinks we're going to see a $2,000 candle soon. So if we begin to see $2,000 candles, then you're already at 20, right? So I think 20 is fair game.
Gotcha. And what do you see for, let's say Ether? What do you see that heading? Because it's starting to make some moves right now.
Correct. And then this is something a lot of people don't realize, is that from all the news I've been collecting, there is a significant bullish sentiment on Ethereum right now. I think Ethereum probably could end the year anywhere between 700 and 1,000. Wouldn't shock me.
Yeah. Would shock me that I didn't have as much as I would like. that would be the only shocking thing there. What about XRP? What do you see for XRP?
Yes, XRP Army, I'm sorry. I know some people in the XRP Army is talking $10 XRP. I'm like, do you understand what the market cap will have to be for a $10 XRP? That's ludicrous. Not going to happen. Listen, if XRP can make it to $3 by the end of the year, I'd be absolutely blown away. My friends over at Delphi Digital told me that XRP is only worth 2 cents. So if it made it $3, that would be ridiculous.
Gotcha. Well, that's at least happened, so it's not like it hasn't happened at some point, you know.
Exactly.
So you think as we're seeing this market trend in this direction towards the end of the year, it's almost a repeat of what we saw end of 2017, beginning of 2018. But the difference here is that the market's a little bit more mature. There's more projects in the space, maybe less FOMO. What are your thoughts?
Listen, and again, this is what I get from curating this news. People that are not paying close enough attention are crazy. Again, the biggest news, Paul Tudor Jones, right? So just the fact that he's come out and said that he has exposure, he's not even buying spot, right? He just has exposure through cash settled futures. But for him to even consider it is a huge validator for the space. You add on to that folks like Robert Kiyosaki, who is beating people over the head, telling them to buy Bitcoin now, which is, again, another shocker that somebody's doing that. Raoul Pal came out and said he's got 3% of his liquid net worth into Bitcoin, right? So when you start seeing this, and then you look at the news article that recently came out this week that said Wall Street is buying at a blistering pace. And that's despite the fact that Goldman Sachs came out and said, "Oh, don't deal with Bitcoin." These are significant deals. And then, of course, even on top of that, Grayscale said what? That they're buying all mined Bitcoin right now and some. So if they're buying all of the mined Bitcoin that's being mined today and some, that's massively bullish. And what I try to tell people is there's nothing fundamental that has went bad with Bitcoin or the code or anything else. And if all of this buying pressure is starting to come in, futures expired on Friday. I thought we were going to see a pullback as a result of it. Pullback didn't happen. As a matter of fact, we're back popping again. So I'm telling people, you're crazy. One, if you decide to sell, which that would be idiotic. You're crazy if you're not off zero, and you're crazy if you're not going to hodl and keep buying, because this upward momentum is going to keep going.
Agreed. And I like it's funny when you hear people saying, "Oh no, that's not even an asset class." That tells me, that indicator right there tells me they are buying their asses off right now, right? It's like, keep people out of it right now, keep it as low as possible, acquire as much as you can. Oh, this is a scam, man. This isn't a real asset class. Who are you kidding? You know, it's like, this is what you want to do. And you're like, oh, I hear that. I see signs. I'm like, no, this is a sign, because, that'll get walked back at some point, right? Oh, we were just,
Yeah.
Oh, it was just it was an off the cuff remark. An off the cuff remark. It's not a real asset class,
And what JP Morgan just say? Remember, Mr. It's a scam. It's a what? JP Morgan is now coming out talking about
Diamond Dave, yeah,
an asset.
Yeah, Diamond, yeah, Jamie Dimon, man, the man.
He's the man. Yeah, an idiot for owning one Bitcoin.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah. Meanwhile, he's got a whole portfolio, man. And speaking of, some news came out this week about a class action suit about JP Morgan. You want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, JP Morgan class action suit. I mean, the fact that they are charging people with Bitcoin trading as if it's an actual cash type of a transaction, like cash advance. It's just it again, to use the word from Travis, and he'll probably kill me for, because I completely misuse it the way he mentions it, but it's fuckery, right? It's the way that they're playing around people and money in this asset. It's just crazy the way they do that. But guess what? There are going to be people who hold them accountable to that type of tactics. It just doesn't work, and the banks are in trouble. They know they're in trouble. They're having to find money anywhere they can find it, and that's how they're trying to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a good point. Take advantage of the people. What do you think? How is this? We're kind of at this point of an economic meltdown, and we're going to see more, as time kind of goes on. We're going to see what the impact of this global economic shutdown is. So we have obviously there was a complete shutdown for 2.5, 3 months. And we're seeing the ramifications that a lot of these big corporations were actually, relatively cash poor, where they're not sustainable without, over a period of time, like Hertz, for instance. Maybe their balance sheet going into this may not have been that good. Maybe they're covering things up, just for the shareholders to make it look like, it's a rosy picture. Some of the airlines that are struggling, going through this period of time as well. And we're going to see more and more of that, I think, as we go forward, for good or bad. Maybe the difference, this time is that we're not, trying to bail out and making decisions on who's too big to fail. Maybe, some of these companies will go under and they'll be chopped up and bought out and merged in, and we'll see kind of a new outcome as we come out of this. We're going to see different people rise to the top. But how do you see, and obviously we're talking about this now, but the growth of Bitcoin and the digital asset space, how does Bitcoin, digital asset, cryptocurrency pull our economy forward?
Well, the only way it's going to pull our economy forward is that those at the top, those that are in positions of power and leadership, they're going to have to educate themselves on this asset, and they're going to have to get involved. Otherwise, Bitcoin can't help them. Right now, I was actually going to send a tweet out on this. I'm starting to understand that Bitcoin right now, it's not even helping what would be considered a normal person, right? Normal person, someone who doesn't have $400 for an emergency. It can help them if they will actually buy Bitcoin and hold it. But most of the times they don't have the resources to do so. It's the other people, those that are not normal people, that are really taking advantage of Bitcoin and benefiting from its effects. So for these institutions, for these organizations, for these businesses, I think if they started wising up, beginning to own Bitcoin as a hedge, and again, it's been proven, you don't have to put everything in Bitcoin. 1% is enough to move the needle for you. And so I think if these organizations would do that and at least be off zero, Morgan Creek Digital, Mark Yusko coined that term, get off zero, right? If they get off zero, then they're going to find that they can position themselves better. And I even think about this for the average business. Again, your Hertz and all these other businesses. If they had access to digital assets like Bitcoin, they might find themselves being able to survive this meltdown that we're going to have. And it's coming. You can't keep printing trillions upon trillions of dollars and think that it's going to be okay. It's not going to be okay. So,
yeah, it's pretty much. Wow, that's a little bit scary, but yeah, it's pretty much true. I mean, there's got to be some fallout, right? I mean, right now you said there is demand for the dollar, but you see a lot of moves being made by a lot of other countries. It's not, they're already trading oil with, not using USD. So I think it's going to be interesting what happens coming up. Just out of curiosity, so going forward, let's say we already talked about 2020 prediction, but what do you think the the next 5-year outlook looks for Bitcoin? Like, what do you see? And one of the things I love about when Bitcoin moves, it really moves the alt market, right? So it's funny, but it's like everything right now is pretty much pegged to Bitcoin. Bitcoin starts making a move, kind of all the coins are like little mice are like running behind. They're not always in lockstep, but we start seeing a 20, 30, $40,000 Bitcoin. Where do you see this going in 5 years? Because we're still young. We're like, okay, we're 11 years into it, but now more people are hearing about it. So what do you think at the end of, let's say, 2025? What does that look like?
So there's a couple sentiments out there on this one. There are some people that think we're going to see alt season again, and I think we could possibly see alt season, but this time we see alt season, it's not like the last time. I think it's going to be a flushing out of a lot of projects. I think a lot of these projects won't survive this next wave of acceleration, accumulation. The teams will falter, they'll disappear, they'll fall off. But for those altcoins that can survive and do well, I think that they will solidify their position in the market, and they will have, some significant appreciation. And we see that with some of these projects like Chainlink. I mean, it's done well. Tezos, it's doing well again. So you're going to see that. Bitcoin itself, though, I think in the next 5 years, the developers are going to continue to develop this product. They're going to build in privacy. They're going to build in all types of security features. As a matter of fact, and I don't remember the developer that's doing it, but he's working on a way that you basically has a secure mechanism. If you were to get hacked, it has a security feature in Bitcoin that will only allow a certain amount of Bitcoin to be moved at a given time, so that you will be notified before anything actually gets moved. And then you can reverse that transaction before it gets moved. So there's all these types of features that can come to Bitcoin, and you're going to see Bitcoin really develop to be and what people don't remember is that Bitcoin is a protocol first before it's an asset. It's the Bitcoin protocol, and that protocol is getting stronger and stronger by the day. The asset is just a side mention of that protocol strength, right? A side benefit of it. And I think in 5 years, we're going to see Bitcoin continue to be that digital safe haven, that digital asset that everyone depends on, and probably will shelter this next storm that we're about to have really well, and maybe even replace gold. And that's a bold statement to say within the next 5 years, but I can see something of that magnitude or heading in that direction.
Kind of already has in value, and it's already beat the market. If you look at what it's done against traditional markets, it's already people are like, it's been dead 340 times, and it keeps rising. So you can't write it off. And I think real people in the financial space, like some of the people you mentioned, they're taking a hard look at it, where maybe 5 years ago they were kind of like, I don't really see it. And when we talk about the store of value that Bitcoin holds, but it's also transactional. There's we've seen that with the videos online where people are buying Lambos. They were able to take their Bitcoin when they hit the high, and they're able to buy stuff. There's all kinds of cool videos out there. But I'm wondering if will there be any significant, because I think part of the thing is like with the Lightning Network, and there's some other things that have come in advancements, and like you're talking about people developing. I also see a challenge where it's difficult to change it. Like if Vitalik wants to go in and change something and says, hey, I think we should make a major change to Ethereum, which we're seeing, you can do that, right? If on XRP they say, hey, we want to vote for something new, the validators can have that consensus and it can be voted in. Do you see any issues with maybe some of the tech being kind of left behind to get it to that next level? Because Bitcoin could really, if it had some real good tech, like moving it forward, it could really blow up like even bigger. I'm saying because some of the tech and the slowness and all this other stuff, you're having to see all these other things crop up. But do you see that you can't really change the source code? You can't change what Bitcoin is. You can't go back and do a mulligan. You can't do a do-over. Do you see any of that being a challenge or kind of restrictive in any way?
It depends on who you listen to. And again, I've listened to a lot of folks over the years with this. Part of Bitcoin's system is that it's built intentionally to be that way, right? They don't want, because you're dealing with high security type of a system. You don't want it to just be willy-nilly changed all over. And it takes a lot of effort to change it. And that's a design feature that's supposed to be there. But here's what most people, again, probably don't key in on. And every week when I do my weekly summary, we have since Bitcoin has been in existence, there's been 24,340 commits to the code. Just this last week, 126 new commits. And there are 702 contributors. There's 3 additional contributors from last week to the Bitcoin Core project. So there's a lot of work being done. We don't see it all. We don't see all the underpinnings and underbuilding to Bitcoin. But I tell people, stay with it. Hang in there. You're going to see it over time. You'll see it. So it's built that way on purpose.
Gotcha.
which kind of reflects back to it, its intent being a store of value. It seems like it's, even though you can, have some, adjustments to it, it's not something that can happen quickly. But even within, let's say XRP, for instance, you have to have a consensus of the validators to make any kind of changes, which they had one big change recently, which was the allowing accounts to be deleted. And when you open up an XRP account or wallet, it ties up 20 XRP, and that was built into the code, more from a security perspective. And so now, if you see, changes within the valuation of XRP, that also can be adjusted. But it takes a consensus. So when you have a consensus of the validators, which allows that product and project to keep growing with the times, it seems to me like with Bitcoin, again, heavier, kind of clunkier technology built in a certain way in order for, really stating, like you're saying, it can't be changed quickly. It's kind of like, if you look at, the big financial institutions out there, when they invest in something, they don't decide tomorrow, well, we're just going to sell all of it, because that's going to crash the market. So they're going to slowly, move their position out, and then slowly move their position into something else over a period of time. Say, like a cruise ship or a battleship moving, and it's same thing with this. It seems like that within Bitcoin, it's in the intent. However, when you do want to have a change, that's where you have the forks like BCH, BSV, and others that have forked off of Bitcoin. What do you think?
Did you say forked off, Jeff? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I did say,
Okay.
fork off. Fork
Wow,
off,
that's a
Chip.
forked off. Okay, that's what I thought.
We told them all to fork off.
Yeah, I mean the forks out there, but that whole Segwit 2x controversy that came up, this whole splitting, the Roger Ver, all that. I don't think we're going to see anything like that ever again happen when it comes to Bitcoin. I think that we're beyond that stage. It happened once, and for the reason that it did. But if you look at what's happened to everything that came after that, it's nothing but turmoil over here. Bitcoin, steady, solid, no problems, no issues. It continues to go. All of this other stuff over here is like a sideshow. I mean, now they're saying Roger Ver is in controversy with somebody else. It's like it just continues. It's just total drama. This is steady, tried and true. So Bitcoin, I don't think we're going to see another hard fork happen with Bitcoin. And I can't see it happening. Maybe.
So
Never say never.
Is Craig Wright the real Satoshi?
No, it's being proven every day. The more that man open his mouth, the more worse it gets. I think he should just let it go. I guess he has so much money that this is just comedy to him, and he likes doing it. But it's just total drama.
Yeah,
Does he have a chance of going to jail now at this point? Lying to the court and all the things that he's been doing.
It looks that way, but it never surprised me. Who knows what happens? But it looks like, if you ask me, the guy should be in jail for all the stuff he's done to everybody, the false lawsuits, all the stuff with Peter McCormick, stuff with Roger Ver. Roger Ver just won that case against him. It's just crazy.
So what about this wallet that's been inactive for a long time, and all of a sudden it made a little bit of a movement? So what is that exactly? Did somebody grab a hard drive they thought they lost? And they look it on there. Oh my God, I forgot I mined some Bitcoin back in the day when it was 0.00. What was that exactly?
I don't think anybody's really figured it out. Now, some people still think that it was possibly Craig Wright and, Craig Wright moving some of the coins or whatever. But, and because they said some of those coins actually got shifted over into like a coin join or some type of a mixing deal. And of course, they're going to be gone. And the person, I don't know. I really don't know. Nothing definitive has come out as to what has happened, why those coins moved. But I don't know.
50 coins, right? Is that what they moved? 50?
Yeah, I think it was 50 coins.
They moved about $400,000 worth of coin, and that's it. Maybe to cover lawyer fees.
Possibly.
Makes sense.
Makes
sense.
Cover lawyer fees. That's funny, Jeff.
No, I will say I do as much craziness as Craig Wright has out there. I will say, at least it makes it seem like he was at least in the know. He knows something about what happened and what went on, and he's got enough information And again, maybe he was part of the whole group. I don't know. They kicked him out or something. I have no idea.
Yeah, there's something going on, but he's having a blast, going around, hitting conferences. It's almost like he's enjoying it way too much at this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like he's just really enjoying it, and every time you see an interview with him, he just likes to ignite the fire again and get all crazy, and he just walks away, does his thing. I think it's great, man. There's one of the things that's great about the crypto space in general is the characters, man. There's so many amazing characters, like you had mentioned, Barry Silbert's another guy that I love watching because, smart, just, I have my, when he tweets, I want to see what he's saying. I want to see what some other characters are saying in the space because, you're not always going to agree. Be like, what? And you read into it, but you realize who it's coming from and you start looking at that. I mean, so who are some of the people in the space character-wise? Like when I say character, some of the people you mentioned, name drops people in traditional markets that have kind of crossed over, right? Like Raoul Paul and some others. Who do you like? Like who are your top 5 that you really kind of you consider an authority? It doesn't have to be Bitcoin, but who do you think those top 5 people would be for you?
Wow. Well, I mean, the top one of all is Andreas Antonopoulos, right? I've listened to everything that guy's put out, all of his videos, his testimony in front of the Canadian Senate, by far the best. So Andreas is one of those people that I would say is authority on this. Controversial, yes. I mean, Roger Ver did a lot for the space in the early days. He's been a controversial figure, but you definitely can't discount the fact that he was instrumental. Like a lot of people, and I think it was Winter Caesar said that had it not been for him, he got a lot of people their start, and you have to give him at least some credit for that. Barry Silbert is one that I'm glad you mentioned him because I tell you, most people don't understand. Have you ever been to DCG.co?
Yeah.
Their portfolio, it just blows.
Amazing.
It's amazing, right? The guy
bases covered.
It's every company out there. He has investment interest in everything. Shocking. They're not necessarily sort of in the crypto space, but they have definitely made a big splash. And that's A16Z. Look, Andreessen Howard,
big time
sharp guy. And I tell people this story all the time. When I first got into Bitcoin, it was, I came aware of it in 2011, started dabbling around in 2012. By 2013, that's when Coinbase came out. And when I saw that A16Z was putting in $25 million in Coinbase, I literally shifted everything I had into digital assets. I was like, you can forget it. This is game on. I was like, this is real. When you get someone like Mark Andreessen to put $25 million, and think $25 million back then into Coinbase, and what was Coinbase? Coinbase was not $1 billion company now, right? So these guys, they just raised another $500 million to put into ad. They raised 300 before that. That's massive. So I watch what A16Z is doing, where they're putting their money, how they're moving. Mark Yusko, Anthony Pompliano, Morgan Creek Digital, those guys are sharp. Anthony Pompliano.
Your boy Pomp.
I listen to everything he says, right? He can say it's a snail crawled across the ground. And I'm like, yep, has something to do with Bitcoin, did it? But he's a sharp one. So it's folks like that I try to key in on, listen to what they're saying, and just keep my pulse on where they're going with it.
Nice. That was really well said. Yeah, it's really good stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so you know what, we're coming up kind of on the hour. We like to keep these to an hour. I'd like to talk to you a little bit more offline.
Sure.
So we're gonna wrap up the roundtable tonight. Really appreciate everybody being on with us tonight. So a big shout out to the On the Chain community. Big thank you to Paul, the crypto curator, for taking time to be on here with us on the chain on the roundtable tonight. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, it was great. That hour went by pretty fast. So what we're gonna do is just hang around, don't go anywhere. We're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna play us out. Jeff, when does that happen?
I think right now.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.